I love my children to be happy. That's a line from one of my husband's songs released about his mom. But anyway, I'm Jaye, Alison, Moscariello, and I want to thank Sherry Steiner, Solo Creatives, for the opportunity to come back again. Last time you saw me, I was in my studio with a paintbrush in my hand, and of course that is never a good thing for me because I zone out completely. So we're going to talk a little bit about my evolution as an artist. How did I get here? Where did it all begin? Well, it began in a little house in West Haven, Connecticut, at my grandmother's house. And I grew up as a young kid being taken care of by my grandmother, looking at images like this, Two Women by Matisse. And I have to say, I loved it. Well, you can see, I'm very affected by these colors. I still love red, black, yellow, gold, all these things. But I love the Matisse prints, and this actually is a print that was hanging on her wall. Somebody put a hole through it, but she had it framed. And there were also a lot of Japanese prints and Chinese silk prints. So I grew up looking at those things. And I grew up in the age of where children are seen but not heard. So my grandmother was highly creative, and she would paint and draw and make her own clothing and lots of things. And you don't think about how much that influences you as an artist until you start really doing your own work. And as I started doing my own work in high school, I loved art. I was kind of, as a younger person, there were so many artists in our family. My sister was an artist. My cousin Adrian was a painter. My uncle Ed was the painter of Payer College of Art, and it was Ed Payer. And my aunt was highly creative. And my cousin Robert was the writer. I mean, everybody was doing something really creative. So I felt I didn't really have the job of the artist. It was already taken. So I would make drawings and hide them under the bed. And it wasn't until high school where I started really kind of coming out as the artist, not hiding things. And then I was very lucky that people liked what I was doing, and a lot of my classmates would say, "Hey, Jay, you seem to know how to draw. Can you do my homework?" And it was like, oh, somebody likes what I'm doing. I never thought that I was cheating or helping someone cheat. It was just a fun thing to do. Okay, yeah, I'll do your homework. And one day, my aunt and uncle, who hadn't seen anything that I did, came over to visit. This is still in West Haven. And they saw these sketchbooks around. I wasn't there. They looked at them and they said, "Whose sketchbooks are these?" And my mother said, "Those are Jay's." And she said, "She needs to be in art school." And I started going to art school while I was still in high school. And I started learning, the classic way of drawing, of which this is an example. A lot of times artists learn by copying the masters. And this is one such example. And I loved what you could do with a pencil, getting a volume, shape, tone, and all that. So this I actually just recently came back in contact with after many years. It had been in storage, as many other things, which is part of my artistic evolution. And so this is an example of the drawing, and I love doing it. And then, at some point, I moved to New York City. I left art school. I got involved with unions before I left. I got very, off sidetracked because, the whole world was happening. There was a lot going on. I moved to New York City. I was working. Everything was about working to support the art. And at the same time, things were happening. The world was changing. People were living and dying with AIDS. And it was a very sad period of my life. And because at the same time, what makes an artist? I think it's everything. Your entire life makes an artist. My father was ill. He died. My sister died the year later. And so it was a very painful chapter. And I could no longer hold the paintbrush and do things in a realistic way. So I started making large shroud-like pieces. And then I went into more of a sculptural direction. And this is a piece that I made, which is called Denial. And this might have to come in a little bit. And I don't know if you can see it because it's black, black on black on black. And this represented this kind of an organic shape. This represented pear, which was kind of a nod to the school pear. And there's the tip of the paintbrush that I could no longer use because I was so emotionally affected by these major losses. Every week somebody else was dying of AIDS, and it was our creative community in New York, and it was very, very sad. So this piece of denial, it actually showed at the Art of the Northeast America in, I think, 1993. So that's this piece, part of the evolution of Jaye. So then, at some point, I would say I was working in, I thought, okay, I'm working in television. I was working with this man named Gary Stevens. We had this wonderful television pilot idea. We executed it. It was wonderful. Ted Turner wanted it. Didn't happen. It was a bad deal. Didn't happen. I thought it was going to be my retirement. I said, you know, Gary, I'm out of here. I'm going to California. I need to paint all year round, and I'm tired of being in New York where only half the year I can paint pain-free because it'd be so cold. I said, I'm off to L.A., and I went. And what happened in L.A. at first, now I'm leaving my family. I have 2 sisters left at this point. Everybody's hit the bricks or died. Well, let's just put it that way. And so I was very sad. So what was happening, color was starting to show up again. But this piece is called Contemplating the Annual Celebration of St. Jaye's Day. Because I thought with all the things that happened in my life, I should be a saint by now because, you know, there were so many issues that happened. So this was, you know, just about the many tears of the losses. And these actually represent the people who passed on. You know, many of them were guys, few women of AIDS. And this was the longing for something peaceful in the future. That's what happens. A lot of times in this narrative work that I did, there was also always a story inside a story. And because my lineage is I'm Jewish and Italian, this is about, you know, being a saint, being an angel, all those things, and thinking about also my ties to my background. So that's Contemplating Annual Celebration of St. Jaye's Day. And anyone can celebrate this holiday, by the way. It's August 15th every year, and you celebrate it by, well, I don't know if I can say that on TV. Well, you celebrate it by dancing as naturally as possible. I'll say no more. So after being in LA for a few years, color was coming back, and I was doing very narrative work, continuing with that and having a lot of fun with it. So this piece is called Naughty Pears and Fish. And it happened as a result of, I was doing figurative work, and you'll see an image that will show up a little bit later, probably after this is edited. This happened as a response to, there was an art dealer in LA who loved my work. It was big, bright, colorful, figurative work. And they were large, large canvases. And she talked to me for 45 minutes and said, I really want to represent you, Jaye. She said, but, you know, could you lose the nudes? It's like, I'm an artist. I paint nudes, and I'm in the LA colors. I mean, it's fabulous, and she said she loved it. Well, I went to Spain. I had an art commission there, and while I was there, I started this body. And this is called, as I said, Naughty Pears and Fish, because it was my response to her, because she said, get rid of the nudes. So I put pears, and you can see they have little body butts, you know. I won't go into that any further than that. But that was Naughty Pears and Fish, and it was a very popular piece. And then trying to figure out where are we going next with these things. Oh, then while I was in LA, I all of a sudden one day I found out I was always working in my studio. I was always pretty hard at work and doing many things to support the art habit. And I discovered that a lot of people were on these psychotropic drugs. Somebody was taking Wellbutrin. Somebody was taking Selectrol. And I had never even heard of these things. Another person was taking Prozac. I had heard of Prozac. And all these different things. And it was one of those experiences that I just had to put it in paint, color, line, everything. And I just couldn't get over that. And that's where this is part of a series called Controlled Substances. Many of the works that I'm talking about you can see online on Jaye's site, JAYESITE.com, or you might even see some of them. You can even Google my name, and you'll see a lot of different images because I have images from different periods of my life on the internet. I had a website pretty early on, I'd say in the 80s, before it was becoming really popular, because I was doing, somebody called it Jaye's Wild Women, the big, colorful, flouncy, fun, mostly nude pieces. So I want to talk about what was happening in LA. LA was a time of a lot of color. It was beautiful. You'll see some of these images. They'll get edited in. I'm hoping. And I worked around the clock. I was an insomniac. So a lot of these very highly colorful images were started with pen and ink, just like this piece that I just showed you. It started out as a pen and ink drawing. So I was making for myself kind of my own coloring books. And I would just start without a sketch, just what was ever coming out of my mind. And I would just draw until I was tired of drawing. And then I would look at the drawing and I'd say, what do you want? And I would just go in there with color. And I would use gouache, I would use translucent watercolor, and sometimes I'd use acrylic. And I would just paint in my little coloring books, but they were really paintings. And your life was going on, and I was responding to the environment in LA. I did a series I called the Pull Series because I was really working a lot. Well, before the Pull Series, there was a series called my Big Fat Fruit Series. And that was in response to noticing that in my refrigerator was fruit that seemed to last forever. And it's like, wait a second, what's up with this? And it dawned on me, oh, okay, this is the GMO business. And I started getting a lot hipper to it. But I did this big series called, Tutti Frutti, or my Big Fat Fruit Series. And it just talked about the sexiness of fruit and the fact that it has this interesting life. Because, one thought goes to another. Most artists are that way. We start out with an idea, and before you know it, we have a book about all the different influences on this one piece. Given what day there is, I have 6 interpretations on this one. Whereas with a piece like this traditional piece, it's pretty clear of, okay, we're talking about a portrait. Now, there's not like nothing much is going on. There's a lot going on in the portrait. But it's different when you're working without, as I say, without a drop cloth, so to speak, or you're just kind of like allowing the mind to just wander and have a really good time. And that's what I love about doing this kind of narrative work and abstract work too, because you're kind of jumping off a cliff and saying, okay, what needs to be expressed and how can I do that with color, line, and form? And many people know this already, but all of us make thousands of decisions in seconds. Our brain works so rapidly so that a lot of people will say, well, geez, how did you do that? Well, it's accumulated experience. You know about composition, you know about line, you know about color, you know about that. That's why I can switch from one kind of work to another, because I've been trained. I know how to do that. If I wanted to sit and do a portrait of Sherry because she's adorable, I could do that. Sherry Steiner we're talking about, of Solo Creatives, in case you didn't know what Sherry I was talking about. And, I'm looking at her now because I'm seeing this interesting figure. And it's like, oh, I know how I would approach that. So there's many decisions that happen really, really quickly. So anyway, we're still in LA. I do this series, the Tutti Frutti series, and I'm getting my work seen. I had a lovely gallery in Santa Monica, and then I was just getting a lot burnt out. And not only was I getting burnt out, LA was getting burnt out. We were having fires all over the place. Southern California had something like 20,000 fires in 2006 to 2008, and some of them, it was insane. So I did the pool series because it seemed like every place, all these concrete villages had pools. And it was my statement on, isn't it ironic or ironical? I don't know. I'm always Miss Malaprop. So isn't it ironic that we're in a city that is really positioned on a desert where everybody's got a pool and there's fires happening everywhere? So that was my pool series, which you will see images, or you can look at jaysite.com, and you'll see those images. And it was really about my frustration with the lack of connection between people and climate and environment. So I started really thinking hard about that. I was, as I said, also getting burnt out. And I had a breakup of a relationship. We're still friends. I don't like to give up people because I had too many losses in my family. So anybody that gets involved with me has to know they're going to stay involved with me because I don't let them go. It's sort of like the mafia. Once you get in my family, you can't get out. So I did this series called Chase the Monkey. And I have a lot of images online at jaysite.com, or you'll see them on this video. I'll send some videos, images of that. But anyway, that series was about, here you are in this Santa Monica, which once upon a time was a paradise. It's loaded with concrete. And, you have to start taking care of your body. You have to take care of your health. You're working 18, 24 hours a day. That doesn't work. It's not sustainable. And you're living in the white cube of your dreams, this incredible studio, but it's not working. And in the process of really throwing myself into this series of Chase the Monkey, which of course I'm Chase, and Chase also alludes to that funny, elusive chase that many of us get on. This thing called success. You're on this treadmill, especially in LA, that culture. You're going as fast as you can, as often as you can, as much as you can, until you burn out. And then you have to go to places like Optimum Health Institute and detox and get yourself better, in better shape. But I just said, okay, let me see. What is this next to this artistic journey asking me to do? It said, it's time to leave LA. Whoa, this was a place I thought was going to be my home forever. So I said, well, I don't really want to leave LA and then go to the wilderness and not know anybody. Maybe I want a friend. So I started going online, and I went online, this dating site, where I met Mr. Bill Taylor. And he said he was a playful, musical, serious farmer. And my, you have your profile. Mine said, look at, what was it? Nirvana now. Because it's like, why do I want to wait for heaven? I want everything exciting and wonderful now. And we met. We were on different sites, but they shared the database. And he opened my world to this incredible place. I mean, I moved up north. He came down after one phone call and said, I want to take my van down and move you out. And I said, I like the sound of that. I have to get out of LA anyway at some point, or I'm going to just completely fall apart. And we got together. We had a farm up northern California. First, we were in Elk, and you'll see images. You can see images of the seascapes on jaysite.com. I keep saying that, but I didn't bring it because if I brought all the art I wanted to talk about, you would get sick. Just too much. And I just loved staring at the ocean. My studio overlooked the ocean. And the ocean changed color, and it changed looks. The light was different every minute. And it was so exciting. And I'll make sure there's some images that can be put in here. But it was just absolutely gorgeous. And we were growing our own food. And we were teaching interns. And it was way fun. And then, there's always a then part. What have I got behind me? And then, oh yes, Bill talked about it in his thing. We had fires. Fires, fires, fires. I don't have an image of that, but you'll see one. We had big fires, and I did a show of work from all the different artists. What happened was there were 3 wildfires in a short period of time, and that wasn't a good thing for people. And what Bill did was he composed music for this production called Fire Survivor Monologues, and I was one of the survivors. And I made a series of paintings about that fire. I also did a short video called From the Ashes, and Bill composed the music, and we also had a friend, Joe Nemeth, who composed the music for that. And it was a sad time. But at the same time, I had put together, just before that, I had put together a book. And there was also, it was called Chase the Monkey, Capture the Moon. And that was a lovely little book, not just for children, with a lot of beautiful narrative images. But as I said, the fire came in, halted the promotion of that project, and we went into fire recovery of our community, of ourselves, of our property. And that took quite a while. And as I mentioned, I made a film about that process, and I will submit the link. It's on Vimeo. I'll submit the link so that people can see it. So from there, we decided to move back east because we had a lot of family here. And we wanted to bring California to them since we knew after the fires they weren't going to come. So, okay, short story, long story short, we moved back east, and I was here, and it was starting to respond to the environment. It was amazing. Here we are. It's all green. It's lush. There's water. It's beautiful. And I started painting some of the landscape. But I also got back into a little bit of the portrait world. And I don't know what I just knocked over. I hope nothing important. And so this is a picture of my beloved. And it's made in acrylic, gouache, and graphite. So I got back into the little bit of the portrait business and made quite a few portraits at the time. And then I got reunited with possessions that I hadn't seen for, oh my goodness, 30, 40 years, including things like this. A collage of the photographs of our family members. And this is me as a baby. I don't know if you can see that. But it dates me because there's an old ivory snow box. And there I was a very happy kid, you know, just give me a little bit of water and I'm happy. I think I'm part duck. And this was my grandmother, who was very influential upon me. She was a little bit overbearing, but here she is. She used to be an opening act of the Schubert Theater. You found that out in the last one. There's my mom with my sister Leslie. There's me in high school. There's my sister Judy. There's Sylvia. There's my dad. And I hadn't seen these, because they had been in storage when I moved away from New York. And they'd been in a friend's storage. And her husband had died, so she wasn't responding at all. So for 20 or 30 years, I didn't see any of this stuff. So it brought up so much for me. You know, so many memories, so many things that I I just couldn't put words to. And I started this series called Abstracted Memories. And it's about, so this piece is called Abstract Memories 1. And it's in acrylic, latex, and graphite. And I hope we're not getting too much of a shine on it. Is it okay? This is about, the whole series is about envisioning emotional connections between time, objects, memory, and experience. This is what happened when I was greeted with all of these things, clothing that came from the 80s and the 70s, objects that my sisters, had given me, and I hadn't seen them. So that just gave me such a flood of emotion that I just had to paint with line, color, and form. Words couldn't express it. Narrative pieces couldn't express it. It was beyond the representational. And I was happy to go back to this home that I loved called the Abstract World. And I continue to do that. And then, of course, as we know, the world events happen. I try to take world events and concerns, and I like to say I like to take heat and make light. And so enter this past year or so with what was going on with Gaza and Ukraine. And this is a series that you may have seen some of the work in the last video. This is from Territories Blue. And this is about, these colors are made in, whites, earth tones, and blues to represent the things that people fought over. Land, air, and water. And it seems for thousands of years we've done this, and we don't seem to learn much from it. We're still doing it. And it's also my prayer for peace. And I hope that we can achieve that in my lifetime. It would be really wonderful, because I really don't want to have to come back and be reincarnated and have to do this again and do the fight and all that stuff. But, it does happen that way. Anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity, and thanks for letting me share my work with you. And if you do want to get in touch with me, it's jaye.alison.art@gmail.com, or you can see my work at jallison.com or jsite.com. And I thank you very much for allowing me to be with you.